Welcome back to the Everygirl podcast. We are in week 3 of the Best Self January Challenge, where every episode this month is focused on helping you become the version of yourself that feels healthiest, most confident, more grounded, and more you. If you're watching this on YouTube, yes, I got a haircut. Obviously, you've noticed. Just kidding. I hate the people that are like, I got a haircut, and you're like, "Did you? Are you sure?" It looks the exact same, but it's definitely a lot shorter than I was planning on. My hair's been so long, and it's been so long since I've gotten a haircut. I desperately needed a lot of, like, dead ends off for sure. So maybe I just had, like, a ton of dead hair, but the hairstylist, like, really took some creative liberties. Of course, I did the whole, like, "Oh my god, I love it so much," and then you're, like, trying not to cry. Not actually. That's a little dramatic. This is, like, long hair. Like, I don't think there's anyone that would think that this is short. Maybe my perception's so off, but I definitely have convinced myself that it's actually a bob and that I am going to have a bob for my wedding, even though it's 7 months away. Anyway, this week's theme is to optimize your fitness. I hope you loved Kendall Toole's amazing advice on Tuesday's episode. I had so many aha moments when chatting with her. And today we're continuing the topic of fitness, but not in the way the internet usually talks about fitness. This is not new year, new body kind of episode. I am not going to be telling you to wake up at 5 a.m. or to do burpees. Burpees are certainly not a part of my dream life. And great, amazing. If they're a part of yours, more power to you, but could not be me. If you've ever started January feeling excited about getting back into it or to go all in on your fitness routine this year, only to just fall apart a few weeks later and spiral into the what is wrong with me kind of mindset, this episode I think is going to change a lot for you. Because here is the truth. I promise you, you are not struggling with your fitness routine because you're lazy. I know some of you might be thinking, no, Josie, I really am lazy. I will make all the plans to work out and then I just sit on my couch instead. Or you might be thinking, okay, no, the problem is I don't have time to fit in a full fitness routine. And I'm telling you right now, neither of these things are true. You do not struggle with a fitness routine that works because you're lazy or because you don't have time. We struggle because we've been taught to build routines that don't match our real lives or who we actually are. We've been sold this idea that consistency comes from discipline, when in reality, consistency comes from identity. It comes from being the kind of person who moves her body because it's part of how she takes care of herself. It's just who she is. So, today I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to build a fitness routine, which I really think of as more like a system rather than routine. All the little tricks and tips that I do that truly feels like my best, healthiest self. But first, let's talk about why fitness routines don't stick so you know what not to do. Because the saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting different results. This is how fitness goes for most people, right? Every January, they sign up for a gym membership or they make a goal to walk 10,000 steps a day, and then they completely fall off by March. Every single January, gyms all over the country experience what the fitness industry will quietly call the financial rush because they know it's the best month to bring in new members. Some studies show around 12% uptick in gym membership signups in January because people want to get healthier after the holidays or they feel the new year, new me energy. And this totally makes sense. The new year is this symbolic reset button. It feels possible for the first time, probably since the last time you told yourself, this year will be different. This will be my year. And gyms, workout studios, trainers, apps, they know this. They take advantage of it. They will build products and promotions and marketing around the psychology because they can predict that millions of us will show up in the hopes of becoming a better version of ourselves. But a huge number of those January signups don't turn into long term fitness habits. Retention data from the industry shows that around half of new members will stop attending within the first 6 months, and a large portion of memberships go completely unused. So, what does this mean? Millions of people are spending money, signing contracts, showing up on January 2nd full of energy and good intentions. And within 2 or 3 months, most of them have stopped going at all. They are wasting their money and they wasted their energy and time. And again, because it certainly bears repeating, I think, it's not that we lack willpower. That's not the problem. It's not that we're somehow awful at habit building. It's that we are being funneled into the wrong structures. Systems that are designed for short bursts of effort, not lifelong patterns of movement. So, if you've been in this pattern before of feeling super motivated in January without any real change throughout the rest of the year, or if you've signed up for the gym membership or the Pilates studio or the app and then tapered off and didn't actually really use it, it's really not about you. It actually says a lot more about the way that we approach transformation culturally. We chase streaks, we chase dramatic change, we chase perfection. We splurge emotionally at the start of the year, and then somewhere likely between February and March, real life meets unrealistic expectations. And so, one by one, the routines that we were once excited about just dissolve. So, when I talk about building a routine that you will actually stick to, what I'm really talking about is escaping that cycle. So, how do you build a fitness routine that actually lasts throughout the year, but also genuinely makes changes for you, that really makes you feel your best? The first thing is to design a routine that supports your life instead of competing with it. The goal really is to build something that fits into your life so well that it doesn't require constant convincing. That's really what a good fitness routine comes down to. So, the first step to building a fitness routine that works best for you is to start with identity, not outcomes. Most people will build fitness routines out of outcomes, lose weight, get toned, whatever it is. I think a lot of times it's based on other people too. Like, I have been there so many years of my life where I've seen a wellness influencer who looks super skinny and toned, and she's sharing her fitness routine, and I screenshot it and I plan to do it. I put it into my calendar, whatever. Of course, to absolutely no avail. I didn't actually keep up with it or didn't actually make any changes for me. Or maybe you're part of that no pain, no gain fitness mindset that was programmed into most of us in the 2000s and 2010s. Like, I remember signing up for the most intense workout studios and gyms that I could find that promised intense calorie burn and extreme results. And I was like, hell yeah, that sounds great. And then I would dread going. I would not work out altogether if I wasn't doing it because anything else didn't feel, quote, worth it. And then knowing what I know now, I'm sure I was greatly overspiking my cortisol and inflammation, which led to worse health instead of better. It wasn't actually until I started doing my manifestation life mapping ritual for the first time years ago, which, by the way, I shared what this ritual is last week on episode 246, if you want to check that out. And I was journaling about who my highest self is and what my dream life looks like. I realized in doing this, my highest self does not spend time in these extreme, awful, draining workout classes. My highest self is toned and healthy so much more effortlessly. Movement for her is a source of joy. It's natural, it's organic, it feels easy, dare I say. And I had this big aha moment realizing this disconnect between what I thought I needed to do to get my highest self versus what my highest self actually does. We assume that in order to become healthier or toned, we have to do things that feel extreme, uncomfortable, probably unsustainable, as if health is something that we earn through suffering. But when I actually picture the version of myself who feels grounded, confident, at home in her body, her life did not revolve around forcing herself into workouts that she dreaded. Her life wasn't built around constant restriction or intensity. It was built around ease, consistency, and trust in her body. So many of us are trying to reach our healthiest selves by doing things that our healthiest selves would never actually do. We think we need to shock our bodies, overhaul our schedules, adopt someone else's routine in order to get there. But in reality, the version of you who feels good in her body isn't living in a constant state of resistance. She's not negotiating with herself every day to work out or not work out. Movement is simply woven into her life in a way that feels supportive, not draining. This is why identity matters so much. When you build a fitness routine based on who you are becoming rather than who you think you need to punish yourself into being, you will stop asking, "What's the hardest thing I can do? How can I challenge myself more?" And instead, you will ask yourself, "What is the most natural way for me to move my body as the person that I want to be?" And that shift alone can be the biggest difference between a routine that lasts a few weeks and a routine that just becomes part of your life. So, what I want you to do is to journal about or ask yourself, what does your highest self actually do for movement? What is the version of you who feels grounded in her body do on a regular basis? How does she treat movement in her life? Is she super strong and challenge herself with strength training? Does she go on more enjoyable walks instead of spending her time in fluorescent gym lighting? Does she dance and hike and swim like anything that is actually fun and enjoyable instead of this prescriptive workout plan? Does she do a 30-minute Pilates class at home instead of worrying about getting to a gym? When fitness becomes part of how you see yourself, someone who organically moves, someone who takes care of her body, someone who values her energy, your actions start to follow naturally. You're no longer trying to force consistency. You are expressing who you already are. The second tip is to build a routine around your lowest energy days, not your highest energy days. This is where so many routines fall apart because we tend to design them on our best days when we are well rested and motivated, inspired, like probably how you feel right now in January. So we're like, yeah, I'm going to lift heavier at the gym. And I'm going to work out 6 times a week and I'm going to walk 10,000 steps every day. But change doesn't actually happen on these days, unfortunately. Real change happens based on what you do on the days when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you're hormonal, when you don't have time, when you're emotionally drained. If your routine only works when everything is going right, it is not a routine, it is a temporary phase. Let me say that again. If your routine only works when everything is going right, it is not a routine, it is a temporary phase. So ask yourself, what is the version of movement I can do even on my hardest days? That might be taking a walk around the block, stretching on the floor, 10 minutes of movement instead of 60-minute class. When you design for those days, consistency becomes possible because you're no longer breaking promises to yourself every time your energy dips. I've talked a lot about self efficacy before, basically keeping promises to yourself, and how it is the number one secret to success based on all the research we have. So I want you to build your self-efficacy. I do not want you to make promises to yourself over and over again that you consistently don't keep. I want you to make promises to yourself that you know you can keep. And I get it. You're probably going, "Okay, Josie, but stretching on the floor or doing 10 minutes of movement is not going to make any real difference for me. I'm trying to change my life here, not just do the bare minimum." And I get it because we've been taught that health only changes through intensity, that if you're not drenched in sweat, sore the next day, or pushing your limits, it somehow doesn't count. But according to research, this actually isn't true. From a physiological standpoint, the biggest driver of long term health outcomes isn't intensity, it's consistency. Study after study shows that moderate, regular movement has profound benefits for cardiovascular health, metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, inflammation, and mental health. In fact, large population studies have found that even short bouts of daily movement, things like 10-minute walks, very small, significantly reduce the risk of heart disease, depression, and all cause mortality when done consistently over time. There's also something happening psychologically here. When a routine feels achievable on your worst days, Your brain begins to associate movement with success instead of failure. That's the self efficacy piece I'm talking about. Behavioral psychology tells us that habits stick when they create a positive feedback loop. So, if every time you try to work out, you feel like you didn't do enough, or you quit halfway through, or you skip days because you don't have the energy, your brain learns to associate exercise with disappointment. Over time, that obviously makes it harder to start or keep any routine at all. But on the other hand, when your hard days plan is something that you can almost always complete, stretching on the floor, walking for 10 minutes, gentle movement, you reinforce the identity of being someone who shows up for herself every day, no matter what. That identity shift is what leads to bigger changes down the line. So build your routine off of what you for sure 100% can accomplish even on your worst days, and you will see the biggest difference by the end of the year. Which brings me to tip number 3, which is to choose a non negotiable form of movement. And this non negotiable is going to be the anchor of your routine. It's one type of movement that feels accessible, enjoyable enough, and realistic in almost every environment, season of your life. Something that doesn't require perfect conditions or energy or any kind of preparation. From a behavioral psychology perspective, habits stick when they are simple, repeatable, and reliable. Research on habit formation shows that behaviors become automatic not because they are intense or impressive, but because they are performed frequently in stable contexts. So, in other words, what that means is that your brain learns patterns best when the behavior is easy to repeat under a wide range of circumstances. So, a non negotiable movement is something you can do every day. It doesn't depend on having the perfect amount of time or energy or motivation or equipment. You can do it almost anywhere in almost any circumstance. You can do it while you're traveling. You can do it when you're on your period. You can do it on low energy days. So your brain stops treating movement like a decision that needs to be negotiated, and it starts treating it like a part of your baseline daily identity. Like you're not thinking about whether or not you should force yourself to work out today. You just move as a reflex. The studies show that people who anchor their routines into simple, easy movement like walking, stretching, or gentle daily movement are more consistent long term than people who rely on highly structured, high intensity programs. There's also a stress regulation component here that matters a lot. When you know that there is one form of movement you can always return to, whether it's going for a walk, stretching on the floor, 10 minutes of yoga, your nervous system doesn't perceive missing a workout as a threat or a failure. And this reduces that all or nothing thinking that causes so many people to abandon routines altogether. Psychologists call this cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt behavior without collapsing into self judgment. And it's strongly associated with long term behavior change. When everything beyond your non negotiable is optional, you stay connected to your routine even when life gets busy, stressful, or unpredictable. This is how you stop getting into that pattern like you're always starting over. You are just simply returning to your baseline. So pick a non negotiable that you can do every day, no matter what, and get really specific. For me, it's morning hip stretches and walking, even if it's a 5-minute walk. This year, I'm also adding in arm exercises. I'll talk more about this later, but I can just do these with or without wrist weights. I can do them while watching TV. I can fit them in easily when I'm traveling. Just kind of exercises where I like pump my arms around. It just takes 5 minutes. It does not stress my body out. It just super easy and simple. Your non negotiable might be a 10-minute yoga flow, or it could even be movement built into your life. Like it could be you always take the stairs instead of the elevator, or you walk around your home every time you're on a phone call. And then tip number 4 for your best self fitness routine is to get a lot more strategic based on your goals instead of just aiming for more workouts and then move more in your everyday life. We have been bamboozled to believe that we need so much more hard work than we do, especially as women when it comes to exercise. Like we have been marketed to believe that we need to work out intensely for over 60 minutes every single day by the fitness industry. Like the default is just to work out more. But when we look at all the research, it doesn't actually show that. And I'm not saying to not work out or to live more sedentarily. That's the opposite that I will touch on in a second. I do think it's super helpful to have scheduled workouts because most of us work at a desk job and binge Netflix at night. Our lifestyle is no longer conducive for regular daily movement. Most of us are not walking consistently throughout the day or farming or hunting or fishing or all the ways of movement that our bodies were meant to move. So, because of our lifestyle, we sadly do need to schedule an intentional movement time. So, I'm not saying don't exercise, but at the same time, I know you are insanely busy and you have a very full life with relationships that you want to prioritize and a career you're working toward and a bunch of other things that take up your time. And a fitness routine should be something that brings you joy and energizes you, not a chore to fit into your busy life. So, I think we can be getting a lot more strategic about the time that we put into our fitness routines in order to reach whatever goal. It does not have to be to do the same workout class every day or to work out for 60 minutes in order to achieve what we want to get to. More exercise is not always better. I want to talk about something called minimum effective dose, which means the smallest amount of input required to produce any desired effect. There is a minimum effect dose for most fitness outcomes, and many people way overshoot it. Like, you actually don't need to go harder, faster, or longer or more intense in order to get the results that you want. Research shows cardiovascular benefits plateau after a certain threshold, and excess exercise can increase injury and burnout without added benefit. Plus, there's all the research behind, especially overexercising for women can cause a lot of hormonal damage. Obviously, how much exercise you need is different for every body, but the strongest body of research that we have, including large scale studies done by the CDC, the World Health Organization, and the American Heart Association, consistently shows that the biggest health benefits come from the first 150 minutes of moderate movement per week. So, the biggest health benefits come from 150 minutes of moderate movement every single week. That's about 20 to 30 minutes a day, or even 10-minute bouts spent throughout the day. Research shows the most benefits come from this time, and anything else is either bonus on top of that, or it might even be damaging. And then we can get even more specific on your individual goals for exercise. If your goal is to improve your mood and energy, exercise is an amazing habit for people who want to increase their energy, their mood. It can be a great thing to support your mental health goals. Studies show that 20 to 30 minutes of moderate movement, 3 to 5 times per week, is enough to significantly reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. That's obviously much different than this idea that we have to do these 60-minute workout classes every single day. Even for the goal of muscle strength and toning, which is where I think most people assume they need the most, research in exercise physiology shows that 2 to 3 strengthening sessions per week, as little as 20 to 40 minutes per session, focusing on compound movements or exercises that work several different muscle groups simultaneously, like doing squats or rows, things like that, is enough to build and maintain muscle for most women. 2 to 3 training sessions per week with as little as 20 to 40 minutes per session. Even more surprising, I found studies that show you can maintain muscle mass with as little as 1 strength session per week if you're also walking and staying generally active. So, if you want to tone up or build muscle this year, you do not necessarily need daily lifting and going to these intense classes. You do not need marathon workouts. The research shows you need progressive overload and recovery. Because another huge benefit of these 1 to 3 strength sessions per week rather than a session every single day is because your muscles are actually able to recover, which then leads to more strengthening over time. And then if your goal is fat loss, the amount of exercise you need for this really gets overemphasized. What research shows is total daily movement, including and especially non exercise movement, steps, walking, general activity throughout the day, everything that you're doing that is not in your, 60-minute workout class, plays a larger role than formal workouts alone. So, what does that mean? According to research, the best exercise for fat loss is not designated daily workouts. It's actually just how much you are regularly moving in your everyday. Walking improves insulin sensitivity and fat oxidation, especially when done regularly, which is why I've said before that walking is the best exercise I've ever seen for fat loss. While excessive high intensity exercise without enough recovery can actually stall fat loss by increasing stress hormones. And then, even as women, you add in the hormonal component as well. So, my thesis statement is that the research shows something very different than what I think we have all been marketed to, which is sign up for this intense workout class that's going to torture calories and come every day. The research is painting a very different picture of what is most effective for the goals that we want to accomplish. And we don't have to be stressing out our bodies. We don't have to stress out ourselves because we're not adding in a 60-minute workout every day when we don't have the time. So, how I would structure your fitness routine, if I were you, to actually work with your life, be sustainable, and get the goals that you want is two different parts. Part number one is to lean on the minimum dose effect. When it comes to exercise to reach your goals, whether that's improve your mental health and increase energy, whether that's just general long term health, whether that's to lose weight, tone up, whatever it is, do not be bamboozled by the marketing that more is always better. Instead, be strategic. Go with these time routines I outlined based on your goals. Or if that was a lot of info and you're like, I just want to be healthy, like just give me a easy blueprint. What do I absolutely need in order to make a difference? If we kind of had to boil this down to like the biggest return with the least amount of effort formula, based on the research, it would look something like this: daily walking, even just 20 to 30 minutes count, and 2 to 3 strength sessions per week at about probably 20 to 30 ish minutes. And then remember that rest days are part of fitness too. The definition of fitness is not just exercise, it's the balance between exercise and rest. So focus on stretching and mobility exercises or gentle movement on a couple rest days every week. That's what research shows is really all you need to optimize your fitness, to feel good in your body. Everything beyond that, according to research, it is not mandatory for health or for progress. That is part one of what I would say. And then part two, overall, live less sedentarily. Outside of your designated exercise time, just move more often. Walk absolutely everywhere you can. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Pace around your office or apartment every time you're on a call. Dance around your kitchen while you cook or get ready. Go out with your friends to dance instead of sitting at a restaurant. Stretch every time you watch TV. If you've been sitting for 30 or 60 minutes, stand up or move for about 1 to 3 minutes. Like if you just think of sitting as a temporary state instead of a default, or if you stop thinking of exercise as something that requires time and more of just a way to live your entire life, I promise you, I cannot stress this enough. That will do so much more for you. You have no idea. I promise you that is where all the change happens. So now I'll share what I call my best self fitness routine, not because you are supposed to copy it. In fact, you definitely shouldn't because it's only right for me, but maybe just to give you some inspiration of how this can look in real life. It's not a prescription or a template, it's not a workout plan, it's just an example of how to put these ideas together in real life. And I want to say this too. I like to tweak this all the time. Like what feels best for me right now in this stage of my life and the consistency that I've come to after a lot of trial and error for years. I expect to change this often. Like I am prepping for my wedding. So after my wedding, when I'm in a different life phase, this will likely look a lot different. Also, it's wintertime now. It will likely look a lot different in spring and summer based on how my energy shifts. Like this is meant to change all the time. This is just what is working for me right here, right now. Okay. The backbone of everything I do is walking. I am sure you are sick of hearing me talk about walking, but it is really my biggest priority, which is so different from years past where a workout only counted to me if it was a workout class that tracked my calories. And I basically avoided walking wherever I could because I was like, oh, that's not really going to make a difference. So I can save up all my energy for Soul Cycle or whatever. Now, walking is my main form of exercise. It is not the bonus I add on top of workouts, it is the priority first and foremost. Listen to episode 227, The Walking Routine That Changed My Life, How to Hit 10,000 Steps and Romanticize Hot Girl Walks, for a more detailed explanation of exactly what I do and my tips to walk more. I also explain in this episode exactly why walking is my number one priority with fitness. Like, if you right now are thinking, no way in hell, Josie, walking will not make that much difference in my body, I will give you all of the research in that episode to convince you. But for a basic overview, a few days a week, going for a walk is my workout. So I'll go for like a 45 to 60-minute walk with my ball bangles on my wrists or my ankles. But every single day, even if I'm working out again, or even if I'm doing like a rest day, just as much as possible, I try to do 2 different walks in the morning and then after lunch. Morning first thing is super crucial, especially getting to this time of year when it's cold. We spend less of time outside, our circadian rhythm's all funky. Walking in the morning will improve your energy and mood all day long. I personally have less time in the mornings because I start work pretty early, so I just literally walk my dog down the block and back for 5 minutes. And even just this 5-minute walk can do wonders for your mood and your energy, even for the entire rest of the day. And then after lunch, I will typically take my dog on a walk or even just take myself on a walk. Sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes or 15 minutes, but after lunch is a great time to improve energy, reduce that afternoon energy dip, and it also helps glucose levels and digestion after eating lunch, which I love. And I just swear, since I started doing a walk after lunch, I have not had one single afternoon slump. I say all the time, a walk outside works 1,000% better than coffee to energize you. And then on top of those designated walking times, like I said, walk everywhere I can. I will choose workout classes or coffee shops or restaurants as much as possible, places that I can walk to. Like, it is so important to me to live somewhere with a lot of options that I can walk to because it is part of my everyday life. Sometimes that means Ubering home from dinner, but I just want to walk as much as I possibly can. So that's the backbone of everything is my walking. And then about 2 or 3 times a week, I love a Lagree Megaformer Pilates class as my strength training. This is the type of strength training that feels best for my body and my nervous system. It challenges me, focuses on my core, it builds real strength that I can notice, but it isn't as hard on my joints as I feel like weightlifting is. I don't know, it just feels better for my body while it's still challenging my muscles. And I also love it because it's really slow and controlled movements. So it's challenging your muscles without feeling like it's over draining me. And I have tried so many different weightlifting classes. I've gone to gyms and those just feel like I really have to force myself to get there. Whereas a mega former Pilates class, I get excited to go. Like, I can't wait. It doesn't feel too overwhelming for me, even though in the moment in the class, I'm like, oh my God, I literally forget every time how hard this is, but it feels a lot more enjoyable and doable. So that is my strength training of choice. And then about once a week, I will take a dance class purely for my joy. I grew up dancing. It is one of my favorite things in the world. It's more like a hobby to me than a workout. Dance keeps me connected to my body in a way that feels like celebratory instead of disciplinary vibes. So to me, it is a hobby, but it also is essential in my fitness routine because it reinforces something that I truly believe, which is that exercise is meant to be joyful. When movement feels like a source of pleasure instead of pressure, it becomes something that you naturally want to return to. And I also think about, when we were kids, we would move for fun all the time, right? And I implore you to think about what you would do as a kid for fun, what movement was like for you then, because you likely didn't have to be forced into workouts that you hated. You were moving around for fun, you were craving movement. So, did you love to dance like I did or do gymnastics or something like that? Did you love sports and you loved the competition and you had so much fun playing? Did you love swimming? Like, I think that we can bring a lot more playfulness and creativity to movement and make play a part of our exercise routine. And I really think that it would make so much difference in being able to be consistent and sustainable with our exercise. but also in our physical bodies. I think our bodies respond to joy so much differently than forcing ourselves through this workout that we hate. So, one tweak I would say for you is to think about what form of exercise you liked as a child and try to implement that in whatever way you can as an adult today. So that's my basic weekly system, but then it also will shift throughout the month because I cycle sync my workouts always. This is like a huge principle for me. Our bodies shift so much throughout the cycle. To me, it only makes sense to shift our workouts too to support what our hormones are doing and what our bodies need. Like it feels really intuitive for me. And now I've gotten to the point where I literally am just every single day listening to my body and I kind of know what to expect, but I also shift based on what I know my body needs. So I'm not forcing myself to any intense workout because I know that it wouldn't be good for my body. Like when you get into cycle syncing and you understand how the hormones change throughout the cycle, it is amazing and so validating when you start to understand how much your body is not resistant to exercise because it's lazy, but resistant to exercise in times where the body's actually saying, hey, doing this intense workout right now is not going to get the results you want. It's going to be spiking our cortisol, which is going to throw off our hormones, which is going to feel like danger to our body. Versus other times of your cycle, you might crave intense workouts and it might feel really good. And then your body's releasing all these endorphins and you're getting closer to the goals that you're working towards with your fitness. So, for me, what that means, how I cycle sync, to keep it really simple, during my ovulatory phase, so about 15 days, like a couple weeks after my period, let's say, I will throw in an Orange Theory class or a Berries boot camp, do some sprints on the treadmill, something like that. I very weirdly crave sprinting when I'm in this cycle phase because I have so much energy and I get this major endorphin release from sprinting specifically. I hate jogging still, but I like wake up in the mornings and I'm like craving sprinting. Like I don't even know how to explain it. And this is crazy because it's coming from someone who, like, if I was being chased by a murderer, I would probably just give up rather than having to run. I'm not a runner. I hate running. I cannot fathom the concept of signing up for a marathon by choice. I have been traumatized by the concept of running since the beep test in elementary school. Do you remember that? Ugh, traumatizing. But during my ovulatory phase, I feel like I'm high after I do sprint intervals. So I will add these in and do some kind of workout class that my body's really craving a challenge and it feels so good. As I get closer to my period, I intentionally scale back. So I will do yoga instead of my other workouts, maybe even just some stretching or slower walking, depending on what my body's craving. And I take a full break altogether from exercise, probably like maybe walking if I feel up to it. But there's a lot of days during my period or the day right before where I know that laying on the couch or laying on the floor and stretching very gently would actually feel best for my body. And I don't label this as falling off like I might have in years past. It's actually working with my body instead of against it. And because I allow for that rest, I always come back to my workouts at the end of my period or starting in my follicular phase when I get that energy. I feel stronger and more motivated and more excited to tackle my workouts because I had that rest. And then some other little hacks that I've been adding in just to fit in movement more seamlessly into my life, especially as I'm, kind of wanting to like ramp it up a little bit to feel my best for my wedding in August. Here are some little daily tips that I love. My ball of bangle 1 pound wrist weights have become like my most important accessory. Okay. Every day I put them on when I'm cooking or if I'm getting ready. And it is the best hack because you get this strength training benefit without even trying to. You're just going about your daily life. You just happen to have an extra pound or two on your wrists. I'll do about 5 minutes of some of those arm exercises with the wrist weights, either while I'm watching TV at night or just a way to kind of keep moving. Like while I've been out of my routine, visiting my in laws over the holidays, I do this every morning as my little like strength training of the day, just to be able to like fit something in when I'm traveling out of my routine, don't have a workout class or have a lot of other equipment. It just is a really easy thing. I travel with my wrist weights and it just is a really easy, simple hack. Stretching and mobility is another really important priority for me, especially hip mobility. I store a lot of tension in my hips, and I think especially as women, we hold a lot of emotion and trauma here. It's so important to give that extra focus. So every morning, I do a series of my kind of like go-to hip opening stretches. Maybe I should make a reel or something about that if you're interested. And in the evenings, especially after sitting all day at my desk, I make a point to try not to just like collapse on the couch and stay there all night. I will stretch while I watch TV. Sometimes, if I feel like I have a lot more energy, I'll pull out my under the desk treadmill and walk while we're watching our shows. But again, this is not about toxic fitness productivity where you have to habit stack everything and move constantly to burn more calories. I've just learned that my body feels so much better when I'm not stacking a lot of stillness and sitting in my life, and the goal is just to feel as good in my body as possible. That's it. So that is my best self fitness routine, and what I love about this routine is that it's structured without being rigid. There's intention and strategy, but there's also a lot of room for intuition. I move my body in some way every day, and on days I don't move my body, it's because I intentionally choose not to for, again, the benefit of my body. I strength train in a way that I enjoy that also gets me the results I want. I walk often. I rest when my body asks for it. I move for joy, not just for results. And again, the goal is not for you to copy my exact routine. The goal is to take the principles that we've talked about and design something that supports your life, your energy, and your body. So, movement and exercise for your goals becomes something that fits into your everyday seamlessly instead of something that you're trying to force. If fitness has felt complicated, intimidating, or like something you're always constantly starting and stopping, I hope that this episode helped you see that nothing is wrong with you. Most of us were just taught to approach movement in ways that don't match real life or real bodies. I hope that this also teaches you that becoming your best self doesn't actually mean doing more, it means doing what fits. And most importantly, I hope this episode reminded you that your body is not a problem to solve. It's something to care for, to live in, and to experience. If you're doing the Best Self Challenge, here is your simple action step from today's episode. Take 10 minutes and design your own best self fitness routine. Not what someone on the internet does, but what actually fits your life, your energy, and your goals. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with a friend, post about it, or to leave an Apple review or Spotify comment with what your version of a best self fitness routine is. I would love to hear what resonated with you from the episode. I read every single comment and review and love them and pour over them more than you know. I love seeing how you take these ideas and make them your own, and knowing what really resonates with you and helps you guys is exactly what helps me shape all the future episodes. So please let me know. I will see you on Tuesday for week 4 of the Best Self Challenge, focus on how to tap into rich girl energy. I will talk to you then. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at the Everygirl Podcast on Instagram or theeverygirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.